Live from Schorr Manor Studios, this is Tales from a Small Town Journalist with Matt Schorr.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this episode of Tales from a Small Town Journalist, the podcast dedicated to all the weird and wonderful stories you're only going to hear about from reporters working in small communities. Small communities just like yours. I'm Matt Shore, and for 10 years I was one of those small town reporters, and I got to know some pretty interesting people and had some pretty interesting experiences working with the public. And I got to know some other people working in the field who also had some interesting stories to tell. Before I go any further, I do want to make sure and mention that this is a listener supported podcast, supported by wonderful folks just like you. There are a handful of great ways that you could show us some support. First off, you could go visit our bookstore. Just go to mattshore.net, click on the bookstore link at the top of the page. We've got horror comics, we've got young person comics, we've got literary novels, we've got books for older readers, we've got books for younger readers, we've got a little bit of everything. Check it out, see if anything strikes your fancy. Another great way to show some support would be to just, spread the word. Tell people about us. Let them know about this goofy podcast and the goofy stories that we like to tell. Tell a friend, tell a loved one, tell a random stranger on the street. Uh, use whatever tools you have at your disposal. Facebook, so TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and good old-fashioned word of mouth. Just let people know where they can find us. And finally, it would also be a big help if you could just go visit our show wherever you get your podcasts and just give us a subscribe, give us a positive rating, give us a good review, do various things like this to help boost the algorithm. All those things are a huge, huge help, and they don't cost you a cent. If you can do any of that, we would certainly love you for it. Now, we've got a great interview lined up for this episode, but first we're going to check in with our brand new segment of the year. Brace yourselves for Here's a fun one. An ambitious plan to bring back the extinct dodo bird draws critics and investors. Colossal Biosciences first announced its plan to revive the woolly mammoth 2 years ago. And then recently, it said it wanted to bring back the dodo bird as well. Ben Lamb, a serial entrepreneur and the co-founder and CEO of Colossal, said the dodo is a symbol of man-made extinction. His company formed a division to focus on bird-related genetic technologies. Now, in case you're not aware, the last dodo uh, was killed in 1681 on the Indian Ocean island, I'm going to say this wrong, of Mauritius. Now, Colossal, which launched in 2021, also announced that it had raised an additional $150 million in funding. To date, it has actually raised $225 million from wide-ranging investors, including the United States Innovative Technology Fund, Breyer Capital, and In-Q-Tel, the CIA's venture capital firm, which invests in technology. The prospect of bringing the dodo back isn't expected to make money, according to Lamb. But the genetic tools and the equipment the company develops to try to do it, they may have other uses, including healthcare. For example, right now they're testing tools to tweak several parts of the human genome simultaneously. It's also working on technologies for what it's sometimes called a quote, artificial womb. Their plan is to study DNA differences between the Nicobar pigeon and the dodo to understand what exactly the genes are that make a dodo a dodo. The team then may attempt to edit the pigeon cells to make them resemble dodo cells, and it may be possible to put the tweaked cells into developing eggs of other birds, such as pigeons or chickens, to create offspring that may in turn naturally produce dodo eggs. The concept is still in the early theoretical stage for dodos. I'm just going to say what everybody's probably thinking. They do realize there was a whole Jurassic series based on what a stupid idea this is, right? Anyway, I'm Matt Schorr, and this has been. This episode, I'm going to be chatting with Jimmy Settle, formerly of the Leaf Chronicle newspaper. Jimmy has just made the jump out of journalism after a really distinguished career reporting the news in his hometown of Clarksville, Tennessee. Now he works for the city itself. He is the director of communications for the city of Clarksville with a direct line to the mayor's office. So, hey, technically he already had that because he communicated with the mayor's office quite a bit, but now he's right there in the mayor's office. So it wasn't a huge leap, but it was an important one for him. And I really can't think of a better person for that job. So Jimmy still has some fascinating and great stories to tell about his time in the field and some insights looking back on the career that he's had and the direction journalism going, as well as what it's like making this transition, going from, in journalism, you have sort of it's not quite antagonistic, but it's a little bit standoffish when it comes to government. It's like so they're almost like the Empire to our Star Wars Rebellion in our view, but not quite Darth Vader levels, that's for sure. Certainly not in small towns, but uh, making that transition, it's a big one, I think, for somebody who's been in journalism for as long as Jimmy had. So it's interesting to hear him talk about what that was like, as well as just looking ahead to the future, the things that are coming on the horizon. So without further ado, let's shift gears and let's go check in with Jimmy Settle. Hey, if you haven't already, be sure to visit the official Schorr Manor online t-shirt shop, the purveyors of all things spooky and all things Halloween, as long as it's in t-shirt form. You can find it at mattshore.net. Just click on shop at the top of the page. And while you're there, be sure to use the promo code journalist and get 10% off of everything in the store. Once again, that's mattshore.net and click on shop at the top of the page. All right, I am joined by Jimmy Settle, former reporter for the Leaf Chronicle, and currently the new director of communications for my hometown, the city of Clarksville, in a sort of interesting what's the word I'm looking for? Passing of the torch, so to speak. His former boss left and took this job, and now you've taken your former boss's former job. So life's fun little cycles. So how's it going?
Hey, it's great, Matt. It is. I'm sitting here on the fourth floor of City Hall, looking out across Strawberry Alley, and I'm kind of up level with the spires up here. So I guess I'm kind of high up here. You know, if you're afraid of heights, this might not be a good job, but I'm okay with that. So it's good.
That's good. Um, Well, I'll let you clarify this. I know that you were with Leaf Chronicle as a reporter for a quite a while. I won't bother with any years. I'll leave that to you. But I was just thinking when it came to a communications director, I really couldn't think of a better person for the job. I mean, you have been in Clarksville. You've grown up most of your life here. I think at this point it's pretty much in your blood, right?
Well, it really is. I mean, it's really a blessing, dream come true. I don't know exactly what you would call it, but it's divine happening in my life, to be honest, because I grew up about 30 miles west of here and over in Stewart County, near Land Between the Lakes. Most of my family still lives around here in Stewart County, Montgomery County, sort of the northern Middle Tennessee region, if you will. I even have some in Western Kentucky for that matter. And, it was just a situation where this happened. This was available. The mayor made it really appealing, and I just came on over, and I'm loving every minute of it. I've been here a little over a month now, and I've gotten past the orientation phase with all the HR stuff in the HR department now, so I survived that. And no offense to them, they're good folks, and they've been very helpful. In fact, everyone here has been very helpful and kind, and I'm just loving it. I really am loving it, and it's a chance to stay home, basically, as you said, and work in our home of Clarksville, as you noted. Yeah.
Quick note to McDonald's, those several statements of "I'm loving it." Please ignore that. I know that's trademark. We don't want any problems
Right.
if if they happen to ever pay attention to me.
Right.
But no, that's good. Now that's yeah, you're past the HR phase. You're in. I guess what I've started thinking of when you start a new job, like the actual trial by fire, where it's like you've learned all the stuff you're supposed to do, and you know on paper what you're supposed to do, but you really don't know until you start doing it.
Yeah.
So you're in that phase now. How is it? How's it going?
Well, it's a situation where when you get past the HR phase, then you're what you're really yearning to do is kind of, you know, hit a rhythm, a daily rhythm of what's the day-to-day routine going to be like. And there are some similarities to what I experienced at the Leaf over a number of years, but um, there's also a lot of differences. And a lot of people who have made the jump from Main Street media over to the other side of the fence, as I have, uh,
That's
will
right. You're the bad guy now. You're in
yeah, I'm the bad
politics.
guy now. And and let me also say that even though I have a long past with the Leaf, I have to be nice to all media now. We're not competitors anymore. People that I used to consider competitors are now my friends and associates, and I have to treat everyone equally, as I do, or certainly try to do. And it's just a matter of kind of hitting your stride, and I am beginning to do that now. I'm getting a feel for what the day-to-day routine is like, and it can be quite lively, because you're representing the mayor, you're representing this administration, and you get a lot of requests, media requests, from not just here in Clarksville but also Nashville. And so you're wanting to anticipate what people will be interested in knowing about that's happening with the city. So lots and lots of meetings. And but I mean, it's fun. And Mayor Pitts has been great. Chief Halford, I want to mention our chief of staff, Chief James Halford, who we all as department heads answer to here at City Hall. He's been great. All the department heads that I work alongside, from the police chief over to the street department, you name it, everybody. I have a tremendous amount of respect for them now that I didn't really. I always respected them, of course, but when you're on the inside and seeing what their day-to-day routine is like, you just kind of, your level of respect just kind of rises even a little bit more, because they do a lot on a daily basis under some challenging circumstances sometimes, on a day-to-day basis. So but they do it willingly, and they do it professionally and very well. So
Looking
yeah.
back to your journalism experience, do you have like a final total how many years you spent in journalism and how much of that was with the Leaf Chronicle?
Okay, we got to talk about numbers, right? Okay.
You don't have to if this if
No,
it's
no, it's
confidentiality or whatever.
I figured that was coming, and it's okay. I'm teasing, really, because, excuse me, I might get choked up, so I need to drink something before I say all this. Yeah, I graduated from the University of Tennessee at Martin in 1988. That very same year, I started with what is now Gannett in Clarksville. I started at a weekly paper called the Stewart Houston Times, worked there about 2.5 years, and then the publisher of the Leaf Chronicle at that time, Mr. Gene Washer, brought me to Clarksville. So that was 1989. So roughly, I counted it up. I was hitting about my 35th year when I came over here with the company, and lots and lots of change, as you know, Matt. Change is the only constant in journalism right now. In fact, it's ever since I've been around, it's always been that way, I guess. But it was a great career, and I'm still a little ways off from retirement age, and I just kind of wanted to shift gears and do something else for a while, but still use some of the skills that skill sets that you and I share and have, and this was perfect. But I will always be grateful to the folks at the Leaf. You being one of them, of course. You and I were co-workers there. There's so many others that you and I both know and love. That are many of them are still around here, and I hope they know how I feel about them because they're tremendous people, and will always love my memories there.
Yeah, I'm sure they do, and I love mine as well. You mentioned changes that brought a thought to mind out of curiosity. Yeah, change is a constant in journalism, without a doubt. Um, it seems to me that at the moment, journalism is changing a lot, or maybe more rapidly than at any other point in its history. You've had more direct experience with. Is that accurate? Like, was it changing before, but now it's like light speed changes, or am I just young and silly?
Oh, I think you're probably on target because there's so many ways that people now can get information, and so news organizations are having to be more creative than ever in staying competitive to keep up with that. In fact, I'm not even sure it's totally possible to keep up with that anymore. It's just you got to do your best to try to catch up. Might be the better way to describe it. But obviously the use of social media is still a big deal. I think as when I left, it was often quoted to me that 80% of the entry into the newspapers, I still call it a newspaper. I guess it's technically not supposed to be called that, but the Leafs will just say website, was via social media. About 80% of the entry into that, and the new users especially. So and even within the social media realm, they're having to learn how to be more and more creative. On this end, we use social media as well. We have a City of Clarksville Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. And we try. One of my initiatives since I arrived here uh, in early December was to try to ramp that up a little bit more than it had been already, and to try to kind of diversify sort of what you see on it. Obviously, everything that you see on there is related somehow to city government, but we want it to be informative, diverse, reflect the total city population. But I guess I digress there, but it's what I'm trying to say is everybody who's in the information business is having, as I know you understand very well, is having to really rethink everything about the way they do everything. And, I still love to hold that newspaper in my hand, but none of us really know how much longer it's going to be around. We just don't. And
Yeah.
yeah.
The I do a lot of work with social media, and the statement you make that such a majority are coming to news through social media terrifies me because of what I know about social media.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I have taken the leap and started utilizing TikTok. I don't know if the Leaf Chronicle has done that yet, or if the city's planning to. Um, but one of the things they all did this, but with TikTok, I think because it was video, it made it so much more apparent to me that that app figured out within, I'm going to say like 2 or 3 uses that I was on that thing, because the algorithm is so I don't know, amazing or I don't know what the right word is, but it figured out my political leanings very swiftly just by my activity on that app.
Mm.
And it was and it reached the point that I was getting nothing but a steady diet of one specific side. And it was the same kind of thing about either like we're completely right, everything we say is right, or the other side is stupid or evil, or, haha, look how dumb they are, and look how we have constantly make them look foolish. And it's infuriating to me because it's like this is only going to reinforce this echo chamber thing. And yet, if I'm going to go on here for information, I'm not getting good information. Even if I happen to end up on a good site like the Leaf Chronicle, the Leaf Chronicle is not among this. It's a good, very it's got integrity journalistic organization, and other sites here as well, like Clarksville Now. Um, I know I'm leaving others out. Those are just the ones I'm most familiar with. But you have to use it, but you're just surrounded by all this noise. And that yeah, it's an ongoing challenge for the ones who want to provide integrity and good information. Uh, in addition to being, you have to be creative to get noticed, but then you've got to also somehow also be creative by doing all this and not appear like a yellow journalist at the same time.
Oh yeah, that's and frequently I hear people say, and I even see this from time to time posted on Facebook. I miss Walter Cronkite. I miss this. I miss they miss the maybe not necessarily Walter himself, but they just miss the whole idea of journalism that he represented in his era, where you just stood in front of a camera and read the news, and
Yeah, I hear you.
that's a wrap. And you never really knew what his leanings were, although there were times when you sort of suspected this, that, or the other. But at any rate, that will we ever see that kind of journalism again, where there's not a little bit of a yellow or a little bit of a slant one way or the other? I don't know. I don't know exactly how we got here with that, but it's kind of the way things are today.
I have my
So
theories. I I didn't grow up with Walter Cronkite, but I did grow up in a time before internet and social media. So I think if there's one thing that I miss, and I didn't follow journalism much as a kid, obviously, but I think what I would miss is when it was able to take its time. Because at the very least, and they used to complain about how fast-paced it was in television, especially, but you had this sort of space in between broadcasts. It's like, okay, we can gather our news, let's research it, let's make sure it's accurate, and then we'll put it out there when the time comes. We've got our deadline, we got to meet it, but we have this kind of window that we can work within. And newspapers, it was the same thing. Okay, deadline is 10 p.m., but in between now and then, we have all this time to
yeah,
research and read it and proofread it and make sure we're being accurate here. Whereas with social media, you don't have that now. It's like you got to get on Twitter, you got to post something every 10 minutes, you got to get
right.
on. And then just the more channels you add to that, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, it only gets worse. And like,
Where does it end?
yeah, speaking of TikTok, that only adds to it because you're not just typing anymore. Now you're actually basically a miniature studio in your hand. So you have to have all of that knowledge on top of the journalistic integrity we're talking about. So
Right.
yeah, it's a amazing perfect storm.
It really is.
Yeah, just
And
yeah,
how it all shakes out, if it ever shakes out. I'm going to be real fascinated to see how that works. But
I try not to take a George Carlin view where it's just like I don't care anymore. I'm just going to enjoy watching the show. It's like I'm a little bit more invested. I think I want it to work out well,
yeah,
but but sometimes it is hard not to just stand back and like, gosh, what are you people doing to yourselves?
right.
I
I'm with
had
you,
an
brother.
I had an aunt that used to always she had to get on Facebook and reply to anybody who said something she disagreed with, and I just why just who
Yeah,
cares?
yeah. You don't have to have an opinion about everything. Yeah, I mean, I've learned that myself.
Mhm.
It's okay. It's okay. So
Yeah. And then when I discovered that that's what Facebook wants, they want me to get on there and that's how they make money, that made it even easier to say, well, then no, I'm not doing that. I'm not helping Zuckerberg out.
right.
Well, I do have to ask though, getting back to what you're doing now, I know you've only been there a short time, but I figure, is there any kind of fun experiences that you've had so far, making the transition or working for the dark side, as we said earlier?
Just getting to know the people that I work with.
Mm.
I mean, I want to encourage everyone in Clarksville to get to know Dave Smith, the director of our building codes department. The guy's the biggest clown. He could have his own. He could host his own Tonight Show comedy hour. I mean, he just keeps us rolling, and I mean, his edgy sense of humor is just something I've never experienced before. So, and I think everybody up here who might watch this would agree with me and probably be laughing right now if they were listening to this. But just getting to know the people and getting to know a side of them that maybe we don't see on the outside. I just want people to understand, because obviously government gets a bad rap. You know, we're the we hold the tax dollars and that sort of thing, and we determine,
The
by vote
evil
of the council.
empire.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you, these folks are very good, salt of the earth, real people. They really are. I mean, everybody from the top down, uh, in the city, in the various departments of the city, are just salt of the earth people, just like everybody else, and they're just trying to do the right thing every day. I mean, I say that not as communications director. I just say that as an observer, who is seeing this now, for the first time, really and truly, in all these years. I sort of suspected it, before, but after seeing it, you realize, you know, cut them a break. They're really trying to do the right thing. And so that's my 2 cents on that. But I think it would help if people just kind of got to know each other as real people a little bit, in terms of the communication aspect of how we perceive government and everything.
I believe that. Yeah, I agree. I had conversations with people who would just make a blatant statement like, government doesn't care about us. Government's not interested in us. Government just wants to control us. And I'm like, government is not this single monolithic big brother entity. It is, gosh, if we look at the whole country, like millions of people work within government in some way. You've got police, you've
Right.
got fire, and then you just secretaries, clerical workers. I mean, those people, that's their job, and they're not out to, yeah, they're not out to control you. They're just doing their job, taking their pay, going home, paying their bills, taking care of their families, just like all the rest of us. They just happen to work in this
Exactly.
specific field. And yeah, and I think, I try not to view elected officials with too much rose-colored glasses, but I do believe that the majority of them really, even if I disagree with the decisions they make, I really do think they're trying to do what they feel is the right thing. And there are exceptions, and I'm
Mhm.
sure we could all name names if we wanted to. But
Right.
I really do believe that for the most part, if you really got to know all of them, I'm thinking the majority of the ones, and you can probably poke out the ones. It's like you listen to him talk, it's like that guy's genuine.
Mhm.
Whatever he does, he's really just trying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and they're usually
I,
the ones that don't get a lot of airtime. So
yeah. Yeah.
it's
Right.
not the loudest ones.
I mean, you see them do human things. Like, one of the first sort of events that I attended when I came over here was shortly before Christmas holiday, where it's called, you may be familiar with Wreaths Across America, where uh, it's a nationwide thing that happens at cemeteries, where they bring in these Christmas wreaths and place them on the tombstones of veterans, just as a way of honoring veterans. And the city has Riverview Cemetery, which is the oldest cemetery in Clarksville. So we did that on one cold Saturday morning, a couple of weeks before Christmas, I believe it was. And the mayor and everybody was over there, Mayor Pitts and everyone. And you see people, uh, genuinely tearing up. I mean, they care. You see that they care. You see that this is really important to them, that they're not just there to, you know, garner votes down the road or something like that. I mean, it really touches them where they live. So that impressed me, and that was one of my first experiences with that from the inside. So I just want folks to know that. And sometimes I hear this use of this term, "good old boy network." I don't know where that lives. I don't know. I don't think there's any room in the modern era for that. I just think there's too many eyes watching. I don't see how that can even happen anymore. Maybe it did in the past. I know it did. Historically, we know that there's evidence that there were establishments like that in the past, not necessarily in Clarksville or Montgomery County. I'm not going to say that, but maybe elsewhere. But I just don't, in this 24-hour news cycle world that we live in nowadays, I just don't see how that can even exist anymore. Um,
I think
I don't see evidence of it.
yeah, I think it can only exist in like the really small towns, the ones that have like, one street corner and that's it, and it's a population of maybe 500 where
Right.
nobody's really paying much attention. Like I knew a town near me, they had one employee in the entire police department. So he was the chief, he was the detective, he was the patrolman, he did everything. I mean,
Yeah.
that was probably a little bit of a good old boy network happening over there, but you get much bigger than that. Yeah, you're right. With so many eyes on it, I don't think it's possible. It's, or if it does, it does not last long. It gets caught very quick.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I
So,
think, oh, go ahead. You were going to say something.
oh, how are you doing? I haven't seen you
Oh,
in a while. It's good to see you. And how's your family?
I'm good. Since we work together, I've had two kids, which is probably a big reason why my goatee is now pretty white since the last time we worked together. But yeah, we got a son who is 6 years old, a daughter who is three, and so yeah, that's my life. I work from home,
Yeah.
and so I often tell people I'm daddy homemaker because I take the kids to school, I cook dinner for my wife when she gets home, and so, but she always is quick to point out, I still do the laundry though, okay?
I do see pictures from time to time of your family. I love seeing that. It looks
Oh,
like a
thank you.
beautiful family you got there. Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you.
Proud for
Most of the time they are. Most of the
you.
time. Yeah, for moments, of course. Um,
That's
well,
funny.
before we wind down, I do want to at least hear a good story from your time in journalism, since you've got so, as we've established, plenty of time to draw back on. One of the stories we talked about before we started here, and we've mentioned this in the previous podcast, so we can repeat that one in case nobody has heard it. Anybody who listens to this is hearing you for the first time about the pet vulture. But if
Yeah.
that one, I'd love to hear again, and any other memories that you've got while we've got some time.
Yeah. Well, there's two I think that stand out. My very first, if we're going to talk about the Leaf, my very first assignment um, was to go out to a place over here of near Austin P in the Red River District where there was a building codes violation going on, and I was just told that it was a pretty crazy one. And so myself and a photographer, I believe it may have been Robert Smith, actually. He may, if he's listening to this, he may even remember that. We went into this house, and I don't know if you've ever seen the TV show Hoarders before, but this far surpassed anything that I've ever seen on that show. And there was literally, we were crawling through stuff that was probably 7 feet high. There might have been a little bit of wiggle room for breathing up into the
Did
ceiling.
did you want to breathe though?
Oh, well, no. Oh, but it gets better. The biggest problem was that this person just was overrun with cats. I mean,
Hmm.
there were cats everywhere. They threw out a number of about 40 running around in that house. So that was one of my first assignments in journalism. And I said, okay, I see how this is going to go. And yeah.
This is my career now.
Fortunately, needless to say, that was a building codes violation. But yeah. Um, and then the other one, the vulture. I know you love that story. I guess I do too. It was this was back when I was still working in Stewart County. There was this couple that I was just, the only thing that I got over the phone is that they had this unusual pet. You know, for whatever reason, they didn't want to give me details until I got there. And so I drive over and walk in their house, and sitting there on the sofa is a buzzard. And they have this buzzard named. His name is Buzzy, the buzzard.
Did he do tricks
And,
or anything?
uh, you know, I mean, he was just a very gentle guy. I mean, he just kind of sat there and I guess waited for him to bring him roadkill or something. I don't know, but
I was gonna say, I hope they didn't feed him while you were there.
No, I'm really glad they didn't. But yeah, Buzzy was a good memory for me, and he I got to believe that somewhere along the line there was a violation there too, but nobody seemed to really care. These people love their buzzard, and I guess it worked for them. So anyway,
Did they tell you how they came to adopt this guy?
they said that he actually just kind of made himself at home there. He just kind of came in the house and he wasn't attracted. Obviously we all know what buzzards eat, but there wasn't anything like that going on. He just kind of came in the house and made himself at home, loved sitting on the sofa, sat there and acted at least like he was watching television with him. So, and we just all kind of, and, the serious, most straight faced couple, because they loved this guy. They loved Buzzy. So, yeah, I wrote about that and, got a lot of great feedback on that one. So,
That's a fun one. I've loved
yeah,
that visual ever since you told me that.
yeah. It's just those fine, warm and fuzzies that you never lose. But yeah, journalism was. It's not all just government and bad stuff. You have those moments too, and yeah, we had lots of laughs. There's no question. But,
Yeah, it's it's the people, the people.
yeah,
I don't know
right,
where I heard that quote. It's the people.
right. And I know you have stories too, my friend.
Oh yeah, so many. We'll have to save those for another podcast, though. We're running low on time. This is your time, not mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are winding down. So I definitely want to say thanks again. It was great working with you, even though admittedly, in the span of your career, our time was short. But they were good years, and I'm glad I got to know you. And I mentioned this before, but I couldn't think of anybody better to put in director of communications than somebody who lives and breathes Clarksville and has known what's been going on in this town for as in depth as you undoubtedly have for so long.
Hey, I know Buzzy. I mean,
Yeah, that's right, Buzzy. That's right. Nobody else knows Buzzy. We
yeah.
Buzzy. If only he wasn't a vulture. Maybe he could be a mascot or something.
No, you're very kind, brother, and I say brother honestly because I mean you're one of my special friends from a long career, and I appreciate you very very much, very much.
Well, thanks a lot. Yeah, and it's always good catching up. So I appreciate you taking the time. I know your schedule has got to be exceedingly busy working with the city right now.
A little busy, but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's what we want. So, but thank you very much for having me on. Let's do it again sometime just to talk. I want to hear your stories, by the way.
Okay. Well, we'll try to remember that for next time.
All right.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy. It was a pleasure to reconnect again. Really, like I said it at the beginning of the podcast. I said it in the interview, and I'm going to say it a third time now. I cannot think of a better person to fill the role that Jimmy is filling right now for the city. They got a very capable hand and just an all-around good person to do the job. So, congratulations on getting the position, Jimmy, and congratulations to the city of Clarksville for getting him to do this work for you. He's going to do a great job. I have no doubt whatsoever. But it is interesting the perspective that he and I share, and it's sort of odd, honestly, now to consider myself uh, the old guard because the whole time that I was in the newsroom, I always felt like uh, the young dudes on the trenches, like that. I wasn't. I didn't see myself as the old guard, even when towards the end, arguably I kind of was, especially since journalism more and more seems to be becoming a young person's career, which we've talked about. There's definite uh, problems that can arise from that. The common consensus, people like me and others like me who have moved away, but still maintain a very strong interest in it and want to see it succeed. We're concerned that you don't have those voices of wisdom from people that have been there before. I joked so many times that I had this cantankerous uh, old editor behind me, just pushing to make sure that the story was not only good, readable, and interesting, but factual and straightforward, and always maintaining this need that we're at, if nothing else, trying to get it right, even if we something happens and we make a mistake, that we own it, and we're always trying to make sure that we're reliable. Um, and it's yeah, and I've whenever I see stories with journalism, I love the ones where they have that just cantankerous, angry editor who hates the world and just pushes them, and nobody seems to like him, but over the course of the story they kind of realize that it's just that he wants to get it right, and it's just so important. It's more than just a job, it's more than a career, it's truly a calling to make sure that they get that right. So guys like Jimmy, guys like me, and people that I interview here, where we all keep a close eye on journalism as it changes and evolves. Especially print journalism is changing and evolving quite a bit right now, and just hoping that even if it changes, that's fine. The format can change, the medium can change, all those things can change, but the purpose and the need, those remain constant. Those don't change. So we want it to survive, and want to do all, whatever we can in our own humble way to keep it going. Anyway, been on my soapbox and rambled there long enough. I think it's time to wind things down. So we'll just move on to
upcoming events.
On March 18th, I will be at Clarksville Con at the Quality Inn in Clarksville, Tennessee. Then the following month, April 18th, I'll be at Louisville Con at the Triple Crown Pavilion in Louisville, Kentucky. After that, on May 6th, is Free Comic Book Day, and I will be with the gang over at Rick's Comic City in Clarksville, Tennessee. So if you're in town, be sure to check that one out. Then on June 9th through 11th, I'll be a part of the Superman celebration in Metropolis, Illinois. And then the following month, July 14th through 18th, I will be back in Louisville for the Imaginarium Convention. That will be at the Holiday Inn Louisville East in Louisville, Kentucky. So now let's move on to
cheap plugs.
This podcast is a production of Schorr Manor Studio, an indie publishing and production house for all things spooky. Be sure to look us up on YouTube by visiting tinyurl.com/Schorr Manor YouTube, or just search for Schorr Manor. We'll show up right away. All of this show's episodes are there with full video, so check that out. You can also sign up for our official newsletter at tinyurl.com/Schorr Manor newsletter and get all of our latest news and announcements delivered right to your inbox. Be sure to sign up and maybe even tell a friend or two. If you'd like to connect with me directly, there are several ways that you can do that. You can find me on Twitter at @TheMattSchorr, on Instagram at TheSchorr, and on TikTok at @TheOneMattSchorr. That's the number one Matt Schorr. Or just by email at mattschorr@hotmail.com. And you can look us up on our official website at www.mattschorr.net, where you'll find this and previous episodes archived, not to mention our online book and t-shirt stores. Just click on the podcast link at the top of the page. So thanks again for checking out this episode. And remember, keep reading and keep listening. Thanks.